Deep in the wilderness of Sinai, where the scorching sun beats down on endless sand and ancient rocks tell stories of God's mighty power, a rebellion was brewing that would shake the very foundations of Israel. Among the children of Israel, as they wandered through the desert under Moses' leadership, lived a man named Korah, a Levite who would challenge the authority of God's chosen servants and face the most terrifying judgment in human history. This is the story of pride, rebellion, and divine justice. The Israelites had been wandering in the wilderness for months, their feet worn by the rocky terrain, their hearts often heavy with complaint. Moses, the great leader who had brought them out of Egypt, continued to guide them according to God's commands. Aaron, his brother, served as the high priest, offering sacrifices and leading the people in worship. But not everyone was content with this arrangement. In the tribe of Levi, among those set apart to serve in the tabernacle, murmurs of discontent began to spread like wildfire through dry grass. Korah, son of Izhar, was no ordinary man. He was a Levite, chosen by God to serve in the sacred duties of the tabernacle. Yet his heart burned with jealousy and ambition. He looked at Moses and Aaron with envious eyes, thinking to himself, "Why should they alone hold the highest positions? Are we not all God's people?" His thoughts festered like an infected wound, growing more poisonous with each passing day. Little did he know that his rebellion would become a warning for all generations about the dangers of challenging God's established order. Korah was not alone in his discontent. He found willing allies in Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab from the tribe of Reuben. These men, whose tents were pitched near Korah's, shared his bitter feelings toward Moses' leadership. "Who made Moses our ruler and judge?" they whispered in secret meetings. "He promised us a land flowing with milk and honey, yet here we are, dying in the wilderness." Their words were like poison honey, sweet to taste but deadly to the soul. Together, they began to plot against the man God had chosen to lead his people. The conspiracy grew. 250 men of renown, leaders in the congregation and men of great reputation, joined Korah's rebellion. They were not common troublemakers, but respected members of the community, princes of the assembly, famous in the congregation. This made their rebellion all the more dangerous. They gathered together against Moses and Aaron, their faces set with determination and pride. "You take too much upon yourselves," they declared boldly. "All the congregation is holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Why then do you exalt yourselves above the assembly of the Lord?" When Moses heard their accusation, he didn't respond with anger or defensiveness. Instead, he fell on his face before God, seeking divine guidance. His heart was heavy with the weight of leadership and the pain of seeing his own people turn against him. "Tomorrow morning," Moses said, rising to his feet with the authority of God's spokesperson, "the Lord will show who is his and who is holy, and will cause him to come near to him. The one whom he chooses, he will cause to come near to him." The challenge was set. God himself would decide who had the right to serve in his presence. Moses then turned to Korah and his fellow Levites with a piercing question that cut to the heart of their rebellion. "Is it a small thing to you that the God of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel to bring you near to himself, to do the work of the tabernacle of the Lord?" His words echoed across the camp like thunder. "You seek the priesthood also? Therefore you and all your company are gathered together against the Lord." The truth was revealed. This wasn't really about Moses and Aaron. This was about God's authority itself. The next morning, as the sun rose over the wilderness camp, tension filled the air like smoke from a sacrificial fire. Moses instructed Korah and his followers to take censers, put fire in them, and offer incense before the Lord. Each man took his censer, 250 bronze vessels that gleamed in the morning light. They filled them with fire and incense, creating a cloud of sweet-smelling smoke that rose toward heaven. But this wasn't worship. This was rebellion, disguised as service to God. As the congregation gathered to witness this unprecedented challenge to God's authority, Moses went to Dathan and Abiram. But these men, in their arrogance, refused even to come out of their tents. "We will not come up," they shouted defiantly. "Is it a small thing that you have brought us out of a land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the wilderness? Must you also make yourself a prince over us?" Their words dripped with sarcasm and bitter accusation. They had rewritten history in their minds, calling Egypt, the land of their slavery, a place of milk and honey. Moses' anger was kindled, but it was a righteous anger, the anger of a man who had sacrificed everything for his people, only to be accused of selfish ambition. He cried out to the Lord, "Do not respect their offering. I have not taken one donkey from them, nor have I hurt one of them." His heart was broken by their accusations, yet his faith in God remained unshaken. He knew that God would vindicate his chosen servants and reveal the truth to all Israel. The moment of divine judgment had arrived. Moses, speaking with the authority of God's prophet, made a declaration that would echo through history. "By this you shall know that the Lord has sent me to do all these works, for I have not done them of my own will. If these men die naturally like all men die, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord creates a new thing and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them up with all that belongs to them, then you will understand that these men have rejected the Lord." What do you think happened next? Have you ever witnessed someone face consequences for their rebellion? Share your thoughts in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what happens next. The words had barely left Moses' mouth when the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. The earth, which had seemed solid and permanent, started to crack and split with a sound like thunder. People screamed and ran as the very ground they stood on became their enemy. The earth opened her mouth like a great beast, hungry and terrible. In that moment of divine judgment, creation itself obeyed God's command to execute justice upon the rebellious. Horror filled the camp as Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, along with their families and possessions, were swallowed alive by the earth. They went down alive into the pit, their cries echoing from the depths as the earth closed over them. It was a judgment unlike any the world had ever seen, a new thing that God created to demonstrate his absolute authority. The ground that had opened like a mouth now became their grave, sealing their fate forever. But God's judgment was not finished. As the earth swallowed the rebels, fire came out from the Lord, pure, consuming fire that devoured the 250 men who had offered incense. Their censers, which moments before had held what they thought was acceptable worship, became monuments to their rebellion. The bronze censers were beaten into plates to cover the altar, serving as a memorial to all Israel. No outsider who is not a descendant of Aaron should come near to offer incense before the Lord. The surviving Israelites fled in terror, crying out, "Lest the earth swallow us up also." Fear gripped every heart as they realized they had witnessed the awesome power of God's judgment. The rebellion that had seemed so reasonable, so justified in the eyes of its participants, was revealed for what it truly was, a challenge to the very throne of God. In one terrifying moment, the question of authority had been settled forever. But the story doesn't end there. The next day, incredibly, the whole congregation of Israel came to Moses and Aaron with complaints. "You have killed the people of the Lord," they accused, their hearts still hardened, despite the miraculous judgment they had witnessed. Their rebellion continued, even after seeing God's power displayed so dramatically. Sometimes the human heart is so bent on rebellion that even divine miracles cannot change it. God's anger was kindled against the people, and he told Moses and Aaron to separate themselves from the congregation so he could consume them all in a moment. But Moses and Aaron, true leaders who loved their people despite their rebellion, fell on their faces and interceded. "O God, the God of the spirits of all flesh," they prayed, "shall one man sin and you be angry with all the congregation?" Their hearts showed the compassion of true shepherds. How do you respond when people criticize your leadership or authority? Do you react with anger or with love? Tell us your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring Bible stories. Even as they prayed, a plague had begun among the people, God's judgment for their continued rebellion. But Aaron, the high priest, whom they had challenged, took his censer and ran into the midst of the congregation. He offered incense and made atonement for the people, standing literally between the dead and the living until the plague stopped. The very man whose authority they had questioned became their savior, demonstrating the heart of true leadership. When the plague ended, 14,700 people had died, a sobering reminder of the cost of rebellion against God's authority. Yet through it all, Aaron's intercession had saved the rest of the people. His actions spoke louder than any words about the true nature of godly leadership. It's not about power or prestige, but about sacrificial service and love for those under your care. To forever settle the question of whom God had chosen for the priesthood, the Lord commanded Moses to take 12 rods, one from each tribe, and place them in the tabernacle overnight. Aaron's rod, representing the tribe of Levi, would be the test. If it budded, bloomed, and produced almonds, it would be God's sign that Aaron was his chosen high priest. The test was simple but profound. Dead wood cannot produce life unless God gives it. The next morning, when Moses brought out the rods, a miracle had occurred. Aaron's rod had not only budded but had bloomed and produced ripe almonds, the full cycle of life from a dead stick. The other rods remained unchanged, but Aaron's rod declared God's choice unmistakably. Life from death, fruit from barrenness. This was God's signature on his chosen servant. The rod was kept in the Ark of the Covenant as a permanent reminder of God's choice and a warning against future rebellion. Every time the Israelites saw it, they would remember Korah's rebellion and the terrible consequences of challenging God's authority. It stood as a testimony that God's choices are final and his authority is absolute. The story of Korah's rebellion echoes through the ages as a warning to all who would challenge God's established order. It reminds us that rebellion against godly authority is ultimately rebellion against God himself. Pride, jealousy, and ambition led these men to their destruction, while humility and obedience marked those who found God's favor. Today, as we face our own challenges with authority, whether in our families, churches, or communities, Korah's story calls us to examine our hearts. Are we motivated by pride or by genuine concern for God's will? Are we seeking to serve or to be served? The earth may not open beneath our feet, but rebellion against God's authority still carries serious consequences. What lessons do you take from Korah's rebellion? How do you handle situations where you disagree with those in authority over you? Share your insights in the comments below, and make sure you're subscribed for more powerful Bible stories that will change your life.